See if we can get...
Good afternoon, Mr. Jacoby.
And Ms. Sheldon, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Ms. I like Ms. over ma'am.
Well, yeah, well.
Ms. over ma'am.
Televolution.
I was hanging with a friend.
I like Michael other than sir. Sir, can you hear me?
Or hey you.
You. Yeah. Where's the old guy?
I was hanging out with a friend last night, and we've known each other forever. And like 20 something years, and I forgot that she knew my grandmother when my grandmother was like in her prime. And so we were laughing hysterically because my grandmother was this very unassuming. Jacoby?
Good afternoon, Miss Rachel. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Hello, Brando. How are you?
Hello, doing well.
Good. Everybody's doing well.
Good.
As I mentioned earlier, I have something in common with Patrick Mahomes. I didn't see that coming either.
No.
So that was...
Mr. Jacoby?
Hello, Miss Rachel. How are you?
Is that not loud enough?
I don't hear anything.
You don't hear anything?
You know?
What if you do that?
But we'll figure it out.
Okay.
As long as you hear me.
I hear you. What about now? Is that better?
Yeah,
Now. Yeah. Well,
Now? Okay, too much?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
he was unplugged.
He was unplugged. Thank you.
unplugged.
See, it takes a doctor. Thankfully, we have a doctor here.
It takes a village, actually.
Yes.
It takes a village.
Amen.
So anyway, welcome to Raising the Standards. It's our medical show.
Love.
And, we're really excited that our dear friend, Dr. John Clark from Prime Care. First of all, welcome, John.
Thank you.
Nice
very
to
much.
see
so
you.
good to be here.
Good to see you, Brandon.
All of you. Good to see you.
Well, there has been some questions from the audience as to whether are you only a doctor or are you a travel advisor? And do you own a travel agency, or are you just an entrepreneur that flies around the world?
I am just a doctor, not a travel agent. My wife, however, is a travel agent.
Oh,
and she is
Really?
yes, and she has taken it upon herself to ensure that my continuing medical education, which is required for my license, is taken care of well in an, shall we say, international flavor.
Yeah, is there
Good. Okay, good.
Is there a newsletter that's entitled "Medical Seminars at Places with Great Beaches"? Is that how this works?
I don't know about that, but if you Google that, you would come up with that. It's actually a big business because all the doctors need to keep up on CMEs. So, and people usually don't want to go to, I don't know, Turlock. For their continuing medical education. Yeah. So like Orlando, Florida shows up a lot. Hawaii, very well represented.
Okay.
Costa Rica, we were that a couple of years ago, went there. So there's international stuff. Went to Vienna like a year and a half
That's
ago.
why people at the Boise Medical Institute can't understand why no one ever comes.
Yeah, exactly. Why aren't people coming to our CME? It's like, we have such a good educational thing. It's like, yes, you have a very good educational program. That is true.
First of all, you know Miss Rachel's going to law school.
Oh, is she?
I'm in school, guys.
Yay.
But that begs the question, the restrooms here are closed because of water mitigation.
Oh, shoot. I have to pee.
Well,
Okay, that's all
but
right.
we
It's hitting
figured
me.
it out.
I'll-
Actually, I
I'll
settled
come
out of
back to
court
me.
for a urinal. However, it's I'm just wondering what water mitigation means.
Water mitigation.
What does mitigation mean in the law?
Oh,
To
mitigate. Oh,
to
well,
negotiate, right? Or to settle.
Well, I mean, when I hear mitigation, I think more of like to do something about it, like mold mitigation. Like you've got mold, we got to mitigate it.
It means
you
to
know?
decrease the badness.
Yeah, to
If there's
decrease the badness.
You need to decrease the badness.
Spiritual mitigation. would be
There
what I
is
need
all
there.
kinds of mitigation.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Right.
that all makes sense to me.
So,
yeah.
so are we calling you counselor yet, or we're not quite there?
No, we are so far away.
So far
oh
away
no,
from
we're
that.
so far from all that. I mean, we have mountains to climb,
Okay,
but in a
good.
good way. I mean,
I
they're
love that.
it's fun. You know
Yeah.
what? It's interesting. It's going back to school has been a very kind of more of an emotional roller coaster than anything else. Just because I haven't exercised that muscle called my brain to this extent in a very long time.
What are you saying about this particular radio program? I'm just asking.
Oh no! I exercise my brain here
Okay, good.
every time I talk to Jacoby. I exercise my brain. I have to figure out what he's talking about.
Got it.
I do
Okay,
that.
Just want to be clear.
No, I do
Scale of
exercise.
1 to 10, right?
No, definitely. But just in like the, I mean, this is,
Academic
reading,
and-
a lot of reading, a lot of
I'm
learning
actually
new stuff.
envious. I'm
It's
actually
nice.
envious. I think that would be so fascinating.
I feel very lucky to be able to do it. And honestly, I can do it because Monterey College of Law has a hybrid program, so it's all online. So I do get up at 3:30 in the morning to read because there's a lot of reading, and then I go to work, and then I read in the afternoon and do my assignments and stuff, and then I have class from 6:30 to 8:30 at night. But the thing is, it's very doable. I open my laptop at 6:30. I do my 2-hour class. I close it at 8:30. I go to bed. I get up. And so you have to be disciplined. I mean, it's definitely regimented. It's very routine oriented. But when you get your routine down, I feel very honored, honestly, to be able to go because
I love that.
and I'm surrounded by really smart people, which I'm having, I mean, I look around
Good
and
you have a break from that today.
well, no, I'm just thinking, do I belong here? I mean, this is really, I feel out of my league, but it's okay. It's different.
Was meeting the Menendez brothers the highlight so far?
That's kind of been the most fascinating part about it is that it's so funny to watch too. Like people will ask our professors questions, and their questions are always so like my criminal law class. We'll get like a text in the chat that's like, okay, let's say you get pulled over, and it'll be very detailed to the point where my professor's going, okay, did this happen to you yesterday? Let's talk about what's behind
Unusually,
this.
I have a friend.
Glad you got out of jail. Like it's just
Let's just say there's a body, I don't know, in your trunk.
yeah.
I get that all the time. I have a friend who has
STD.
discharged. What would you do if you were? Yeah.
Interesting. That is, so we're learning about defamation right now in my torts class. And interestingly, I was actually going to bring this up. One of the kind of cut and dry, some semi-provable forms of defamation is saying that someone else has I forget what they call it. It's like some sort of medical condition that you don't want, like an embarrassing medical condition.
Yeah.
And so it could be like a venereal disease or something like that. Okay, there you go. You're not supposed to say that. But that's an interesting, I'm learning about that in my torts class. That's one of the no-nos. You're not supposed to talk about, and it could be, I think HIV was a big one too, because for a long time there was a weird stigma about HIV.
So some patients will ask
interesting.
me to write, could you write a note that says that I have these conditions or something?
Yeah.
And I have to ask them, okay, so am I going to do this vaguely and just say you have a medical condition that prevents you from doing this, that, or the other thing?
True.
Or is it okay with you if I divulge it, like pregnancy is a thing, which may be obvious, but, anyways, I cannot divulge a particular diagnosis unless I ask permission from the patient saying, is it okay? And remarkably, most people are fine with, go tell them the diagnosis. It's like, okay, I just want to make sure you're okay with that. But there are certain ones that are more sensitive, HIV, other sorts of things.
Well, that's just really quick before I forget. That's a big thing too. If you've worked in a specific field for a very long time, like people who, like for instance, there's a guy that I work with who is a doctor in town who he got into a lawsuit. He had an issue with a patient, and his attorney that he hired was someone who had been a medical physician for many, many, many years. And so he knew, and that's so that people do that. They get these really niche fields like they only do veterinary law, veterinary practice law, or only, people who are in neurology or whatever, which is kind of cool. So it's just so much about that field. You should protect the people in that field. It's pretty neat.
You're listening to Raising the Standards. Delighted to have you with us today. And I brought up for several reasons law school, because I don't think we've talked to John much over the years about his background, because when he went into the Federal Witness Protection Plan, I guess they shredded many of your files.
Yes.
And did you go to Cal? Where did you do medical school?
I went, so Cal doesn't have a medical school. I did undergraduates at Berkeley, did Cal. Actually went to San Jose State for a year, then went to Cal for 4 years, took a year off, and then I went to medical school at UC Davis.
Nice, I'm an Aggie.
Yeah, right? Great, go Aggies.
So such a good school.
And then I made residency in family medicine at the Tivita Medical Center in Salinas, and that's where I finished my training.
Well, you were talking about law school and the grind and that early grind. To talk a little bit about medical school, was it I know it's a continuing education, otherwise you wouldn't have gone to Tahiti. But was it beyond belief in terms of stress and time?
Yeah, I think you look at the amount of time you're putting into medical school training, it's, well north of 80 to 90 hours a week if you're actually studying. There's just massive amount of information you need to get into your mind to be able to just have the basics of medicine. I tell my medical students who are struggling with this when I'm teaching them that, ask them this question: when was the last time you think a particularly bright individual in the history of mankind could know all the knowledge of Western culture? Answer is maybe Francis Bacon around 1500. Point being, we're well past that. How about the last time a particularly bright person could know everything in medicine at their particular time? Turns out that's a guy named Young, Dr. Young. It was about mid 1800s. Point being that we're well past the time that any particularly bright individual can get into their mind all of the knowledge in medicine. So it's essentially an impossible thing to know everything. Hence, we do specialization now. That was basically our way of dealing with that. But we're even actually now at a point where we can't just keep subspecializing people into all these specialties to be specialists. We've gone beyond the capacity even for that strategy to actually work. So it's this Herculean effort just to try to get in a basic understanding of human physiology and anatomy and things like that. And then from that, you build upon it. So I have a particular problem as a family physician because I am a general practitioner. So I've chosen not to specialize in particular dermatological conditions of the left foot, right? And that's not my thing, right? So I'm going to be general. So I have to keep this sort of openness to that. So it's a tall order.
But is that a two-edged sword where you may? It's like I'm basically a pastry chef, but you're doing the meat wrong on this deal. You have say to yourself, this isn't for me to answer, even though I'm pretty confident I know what's going on here.
Yeah, so the principles of diagnosis are the same, no matter if you're a cardiologist, neurologist, or whatever. So there's a certain just generalness about the idea of trying to come to a diagnosis with somebody, and to a certain degree management, but also any physician is limited. So if you're going to be a cardiologist in certain things, you're just going to see that, you get good at that. As a family physician, what I'm choosing to do, because you're good at what you do regularly, is I'm choosing to be a specialist of common illness in my community. So, because I'm going to be good at what I see commonly, so I'm not going to be a specialist in this particular thing. I'm going to serve my community by being able to see 90% of what people have in that community. And so, if you have diabetes, hypertension, hypercholesterol, I got that. Those are super common. I do those all the time. Pregnancy, yeah, that's pretty common. I'm going to do that. Kids, immunizations, yep, super common. I'm going to be doing that. If you have some sort of bizarre, weird thing, I'm going to recognize that, yep, that's not in something that I can do. Right. But I'll get you to somebody who can. But I can take care of 80 to 90% of what walks through my door.
So do you in fact know all there is to know about birth and babies?
No.
Yeah,
right, so I have specialists, but
I'm the only guy that saw Gone with the Wind. I'm sorry.
But we all do that. If you're if you're an electrophysiological cardiologist and somebody comes up with a kidney problem, you're not going to deal with that. You're going to say, I need to talk to a nephrologist. So we're all in medicine limited. So we're all limited practitioners. So that's just what the facts of having so much medical knowledge. So we all have to learn to. People talk about a medical home. And having, the idea that one doctor can do everything, that's not going to work. It's a medical community. So you live in a sort of a medical village, and there's a medical neighborhood, and it's a group effort.
You alluded to the fact if your headphones are out, don't worry, we're still fine.
Sorry about that.
I'm
Are
good.
yours good?
You,
Okay.
I'm good.
you alluded to the fact that about when there was a human being that knew everything about medicine. When you went to medical school, it was still a time, the technology existed, but not nearly where we're at today.
Right.
That they actually tried to get you to know everything.
So the implication, so nobody actually said that to me in medicine, that hey, you're not going to be able to know everything, and we're just going to try to get you some basic stuff. Although it's sort of in the atmosphere. But there was sort of this implication that we need you to know all this stuff, and we're going to put it out into a course. And I remember going through my pathology course, which is basically where you're regaled 2 hours a day for 3 or 4 months with all the things that can go wrong with a human body.
Yeah.
And it was just overwhelming. And it's like, I need to know everything about about those sorts of things. Nobody said, well, no, but you just need to be aware of those things. So I think that, the medical community still has this kind of idea. My nephew's going through medical school, and I had to tell him that, and he's like, well, they're sort of implying that I should know all those things. Well, you should be familiar with it, but, you need to have this core basic thing.
And you will never know everything.
And you will never know. And my opinion, and this, gets a little bit for our field, is medicine just needs to retool out of the subspecialization idea that's how we're going to provide healthcare to a community. What we need to really do is to train like an army of generalists and have a relatively smaller cadre of specialists supporting that army of generalists and empowering them not to refer to them things, but empowering them to be able to take care of things. Imagine if you went to your doctor and you had some sort of, symptomatology and like a cough or something, and there was this odd pneumonia, and your primary care doctor said, you have some pneumonia, but there's something really weird about this. Tell you what, I'm going to click my ID button here, and up comes on the screen an infectious disease specialist, said, yes, what can I do to help you? And it's like, well, we have this, and we have a discussion, and immediately at that time, you should think about these and do these things. And at that visit, at that time, you got not only your primary care doctor, but you got a specialist who helped your primary care doctor you didn't need a referral to the infectious disease. That'll happen in 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
You got immediate care that was expedient, and your doctor got paid a little extra for that. Your infectious disease specialist got paid for that. You'd have to completely retool the finances of medicine to do that, but that would serve people's health so much better.
I liken it to when you and I were growing up, and there was a light on your dashboard.
Yeah.
And you'd have to go in, your mechanic would have to go through all the fuses
and
have to check them one by one and figure out what's wrong. Now you've got the display unit, you plug in, it tells you immediately what the problem is. There is something like that now in medicine, or has been for some time, where you could punch in symptoms and it gives you an answer.
Right. Well, so that's like in a computer program.
Right.
That gets into a whole, is that a capable way of actually diagnosing illness, which I would love to have that discussion, but it's complicated. We're getting into AI, we're getting into that sort of thing. But
since we have a doctor here, I'll ask that question. Is that a capable way?
No.
Okay.
And for no other reason than the fact that to input the information into that, you have to have somebody getting the information, not only asking the questions, but also you need to, there's this thing called a physical exam. We have to actually physically examine somebody, and a computer can't do that.
No.
Well,
No.
you face this,
Computer can't do that.
but you face this in law school. We've talked about with AI and stuff.
Oh, I know. Someone asked me. So I have a friend who's in school right now, and we were talking yesterday because we haven't spoken since she started school. She's in a similar situation as me, kind of like late 30s, early 40s, kind of, just different. You haven't been in school in a while. And we were talking about that. And she was saying, oh, I use ChatGPT for everything. I just can't but see, this is the thing about the difference in law school is you have to write that essay. I have to, in a month, I need to be able to sit and with absolutely nothing, write 3 essays on my own.
in a test
situation in an hour apiece. I can't use ChatGPT.
Yes, because it's required
to practice.
Yeah.
That's how I take finals.
You have to know the information yourself.
I have to have it memorized. I have to be able to restate it in writing, and I have to have written those essays myself enough times so that I can do it in an hour, which sounds like a long time.
It goes by like that.
Yeah.
I swear, my last round of finals, they were all 3-hour finals and 3 essays, and it's like you start going, and I mean, I thought it had been 15 minutes, and it was gone, hour and 10 gone.
But John, there are, from an AI standpoint, shortcuts, if you will, that aid in efficiency.
Right.
So, I mean, there is a lot of advantage on some level. You don't have to learn the entire song, which the hip bone is connected to.
The key word in that is aid. Yeah. So there are diagnostic aids, there's management aids that are resources that a physician may have available to them.
And they're not panaceas.
But they're not doing it themselves.
Okay.
Right. So, and people say, well, someday AI will get to the point where it can diagnose illness. And all I can say is like, I'll go up against AI right now. Let's do it. Right at this moment. Bring me the patient. Let's do the diagnosis. I'm going to beat it every single time. It is not capable of actually diagnosing illness well. My opinion.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because I had a woman that I worked with that did what is it called?
ChatGPT is what she's doing. It depends on the industry. Sometimes it's really helpful. It's just,
exactly.
I just can't lean on it because I have to be able to do it.
You know, she needed a 600-word column on something and gave it 10 seconds worth of information. And boom, there it is.
Oh, no, completely.
And everything that came in the article, although with an extraordinary lack of creativity, still got the point in what she wanted to get across.
Right.
To which, now, feeling very insecure, I said, have it say something funny. And it couldn't.
Well, I think
I'm okay.
that they use something like that though to keep an eye on us when we're taking the exam. Because when we're taking the exams, we're being watched by a proctor. But I think it's a robot. And it looks at your eye movements. That's what the people were telling me.
Really?
And then, so the bar is going to switch to this too. Apparently, in the next few years, they're talking about people being able to take the bar from home. And it kind of makes sense because honestly, when I was doing my exam, it's proctored. They're watching where you're looking, and this never happened to me because I was so fixated on this. I was scared to look away from the screen. I probably have eye damage from how intensely I was staring at the screen. I'm sure the robot was like, this girl's intense.
And your chair's completely
But definitely
ruined.
not using an off-screen resource.
I wanted to make sure they knew.
Right.
But one of the girls in my class said, oh yeah, what happens is if you look away too much, they have you pick up a person comes on and they have you pick up your laptop and show them around the room. And I didn't want to use that time. I was freaked out about that happening and it's sucking up my time. So I was just like, I'll stare at the screen like a psycho. How about that?
And try to avoid using the phrase quick duck.
Oh my God, I know. Yeah, because I guess you could post, people talked about posting posters around. You could look at it just for a quick, I don't know.
Talking to John Clark.
You got to just learn it, I guess.
Dr. John from Prime Care. We got a little Illinois Jacquet there, I think.
I do.
We do. Let's do a little music, and we'll be back. You are listening to Raising the Standards, the Internet's finest hour.
Anywhere.
Illinois Jacquette and Louisiana Blues. Rachel did some cooking this week.
I did. I baked a little
And you
cake for
made
you.
some very healthy things. Why don't you
It is
describe
healthy.
what your feeding is?
Oh, well, it is. So I made you like a little carrot cake. There's no icing or anything, but it's
We're painfully aware of that.
the carrot cake is carrot and maple syrup and flaxseed meal, ground flaxseed, and almond flour and raisins.
Raisins.
Highly controversial.
I hate raisins.
A little walnut and maple syrup and cinnamon. Oh, yeah, and then you got the cinnamon, nutmeg, and ginger mixture. Got to be careful on the nutmeg. Pinch a nutmeg, a little more ginger. You know, that's my deal. And then that's a little banana bread.
It's very good.
Which I hadn't
there are
done.
no raisins.
There are no raisins, but it has the same base.
I raised rabbits as a kid, so it's just raisins. I don't want to
Raisins.
You're just over raisins. Yeah.
He's over it.
I just, just the looks.
What's what's the raisin and rabbit thing? How come I
They're
can't think of
droppings.
It's a visual thing.
And I think my brother, when I was really little, said, "You know where raisins come from? Where? The rabbits."
Really?
I think I bought it.
You were scarred for life.
I was
by
scarred.
that. Yeah,
Traumatized.
That's it.
Wow, that's all it takes. My cousin, I used to love dried figs, love dried figs, and then she told me that sometimes there are bugs in them, and it
Really?
freaked me out.
Yeah.
So, did you know that?
Well, I know there's a tree in Davis that actually grows figs. And my friends and I, we would go and pick figs. And I always had this secret fear that there would be a bug in them.
Interesting.
So I'm aware.
Was there ever actually a bug in them?
No, never.
No. Okay,
They were
good.
delicious.
They're easy to pull apart too. You could
yeah.
just pull a fig apart. Okay.
That's right
Cool,
up there with
you know.
try the veal. Oh, where's that come from?
It's a baby animal.
you
Oh
don't
no, we don't like that.
I saw a thing on Facebook. I was going to send it to you. That was a baby sloth, and I wish I wish we had a camera in here because it was a baby
Could
sloth in
not.
the middle of the road, and the guy went to pick it up, and the sloth went to punch him, and his arm is moving so slowly.
That's the
He
best.
just kinda, I'm gonna punch you.
That is so
You
cute.
can't duck
You can't.
a roundhouse from a sloth. You
you're in real trouble.
deserve to be knocked
You're
out.
in real trouble.
So cute. There's a video too of the I guess the baby sloth fell from the mommy sloth was in the tree. The baby sloth
And
fell,
just,
and this
catch
woman
you.
goes and picks up the baby sloth and hands it back, and the mom is just so slowly just reaching out to pick it up, and then she just like tucks the baby sloth into her shoulder, and she is really grateful. You could tell, but it's amazing how slow they
They really
glacial pace. You know,
It's amazing.
their own pace.
Chill.
Well,
they're very chill.
the phrase "remarkably fictitious knowledge" has been in the news lately. Oh, I'm sorry, I call it RFK.
Oh, no.
Oh, but
Oh,
I'm
boom.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
I finally, I was like, wait, I'm so bad with acronyms.
Yeah.
I'm like,
You got you just came back from an infectious disease
Conference yes.
in
Kauai.
and where was it you stayed?
Kauai, yeah.
Where were you staying?
The
Prince?
Grand Hyatt
the
was
Grand
where
Hyatt.
they had the infectious disease conference.
But you had to go to the lectures 5 hours a day, right?
did,
Do
absolutely.
you bring the Mai Tai to the lecture?
It's frowned upon to be sloshed in these lectures. They're fairly serious kind of things.
I'm
but
pretty sure there's no dress code at those lectures.
well, it's interesting to see the presenters up there afterwards in the evening going like, you seemed really professional, and now you look
You are drinking pretty good.
pretty good. But that's fine. Hopefully you'll be sobered up by tomorrow when we talk about travel diseases.
Well, a lot of the things about RFK are just beyond belief. But some of the things, like measles, like polio, like diseases that he is, that I'm not saying that I specifically know that he's against these deterrents. But you're saying measles is the kind of thing we were talking before the show that you were thinking about, bringing back a vaccine.
Yeah.
It's not a person like John's going to get a new vaccine and bring it back.
Well, so measles is, in the news, you might have noticed, we're having one of the biggest outbreaks of measles in the last 35 years, I think. Now, there are measles outbreaks. They happen across the world. They do happen to a small degree in the United States. This one's the biggest for quite some time, attributed to a higher lack of vaccination in the population in general, which ironically accelerated after COVID-19. It was much less. It's worldwide phenomenon, by the way, and also the United States. So measles has sort of been in the news, and especially vaccines. Our infectious disease conference went over that quite a bit. One of the interesting, on a personal note, one of the interesting facts is that they developed the measles vaccines in the late 1950s, like 1957 or something like that, and initially it was this inactivated vaccine. Turns out that wasn't that effective, and then they developed a live attenuated, which means a live weakened vaccine that was much more effective. And so after 1968, they started doing that. 2 vaccine series get you well over 95% of the people who get that get protected against measles. But if you were in that period of time between like 1957 to 1968, and that's when you got your measles vaccines, you're not quite as protected as those that got a better vaccine later. And so they recommended getting a booster with the live attenuated vaccine that was better. Now, I was born
even in advanced years.
Correct. If you just haven't had that. And I was born in 1963. I got my measles vaccines through the mid to late 1960s. I would be one of those that they would recommend. And I'm trying to remember, I think, pretty sure, but not 100% sure, that I got a measles booster, an MMR booster in medical school because I was identified at that time. But I can't find the records. I'm thinking to myself, well, now there's this sort of measles outbreak. It's sort of spreading. It's now in California. It's like, is it going to hurt me to go get an MMR vaccine? Don't think so. I'm in that vulnerable period. Maybe I'll go get myself a booster since I'm in that vulnerable
Now, having been born
population.
in 1952, my measles vaccine was administered with leeches, so it was a little...
Well, you had measles. Probably.
Yeah, I had measles.
Yeah, you had measles.
But...
That's the best protection, by the way.
But when you say since COVID had happened, was that people got vaccinated out, or legislatures said we're not going to? Because when we were growing up, you had to get shots to go to school.
Right.
Right. Me too.
Did you?
Same.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I had to have my
now
card.
You don't necessarily.
Oh, I didn't know that. Like the MMR, don't you have to get the MMR?
Yeah, depending on the state.
So to get school entry, you have to be up to date on your childhood immunizations unless you've gotten a waiver. So people can, request, this has been going on for a long time, say, I do not want my child, I don't believe in vaccines, I don't want them to get it. So you can get a waiver and say that I don't do that. Now the school can choose then to say, well, then you can't come to school because if your child gets sick, then you're putting other people at risk and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, and many of those people say, that's fine, I'm going to go do a
Now homeschooling, obviously.
I need to go to a Waldorf school or something else like that.
Yeah.
And I'll get educated in some other way. So no, you're not. People can exercise their liberty and say, I don't want to have my child vaccinated. For whatever reason they want. So, and that's been happening for a long time. So it turns out after COVID-19, and vaccine rates had been sort of drifting down even before COVID-19. It really took off after COVID-19, which much more vaccine reticence, people choosing not to get vaccine on multiple different levels, including children. And that took off. So non-vaccinated children right now are at a higher rate than they I've been for decades. And now we have a measles outbreak, mostly in kids that aren't vaccinated.
But in California, can you say, I'd rather my children not be vaccinated and still send them to public school?
I believe that the public school can say no. I don't.
I would hope
actually,
they would say no.
That's for our lawyer here. That would be a question of law. I don't actually know the answer to that question, but I think that the school has a right to protect those that go to that school. They have to provide a safe environment for children coming to the school. So I believe that they have the option of saying, no, we can't have you come to school here.
Rachel, the biggest problem in medicine right now for you as an individual?
For me?
Yeah.
I was not prepared for this question.
This terrible wart.
No, what is this? Yeah. Well, I have some medical anxiety. It's not their fault. It's my fault. But appointments taking too long, not getting a response. Oh, I don't.
Those are the average, I guess.
Those are the normal. No, honestly, I've been fine. I have some medical anxiety, but I'm doing like my regular stuff, and they've been great. I don't know. I have not. I'm pretty whatever.
Everyone has medical anxiety.
Pretty mellow.
Yeah, but knowing John so well, and we've talked about this in the past, and you have talked and continue to lecture on putting empathy back into medicine.
Right.
So when you say the anxiety is my fault, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
I mean, the anxiety can also come from a physician if he or she is not handling you correctly.
Yes. So, there's this thing they call white coat hypertension, right? So people go to the doctor, they see somebody in a white coat, and their blood pressure goes up, and it's a measurable thing, right? Their blood pressure's high. I have white coat hypertension, and the idea is that they're nervous about seeing a doctor. So if you kind of try to connect the dots, well, why would you be nervous about seeing a doctor? Because we're nice. I'm not monstrous looking. I try to be empathetic and nice and things. Well, why would we be nervous? Because you go to see doctors for potential illness or prevent illness. Okay, so there's this thing called illness, right? Yeah. Okay, good. And what is that? What is illness? What is the issue we're talking about? Well, you can get sick, and
status of being ill.
you can status of being ill, and you can suffer and maybe die of things. Wait, whoa. So there's this illness that might make you suffer and die. Yeah, that's the thing. And you go see doctors because of that. Got it. Yeah. So that's a little scary about when I was when I was raising my kids, they around 12 or 13, they suddenly got this medical anxiety, not because I'm a doctor, because I might have this, and you could just see it, and it's they got the idea that you can die someday of illness,
fear of their own mortality,
and it's a fear of mortality. It's a human, and I hate to break it to you, but we haven't been able to keep people alive.
So that
forever.
whole thing isn't a rumor. That's true.
Yeah, no, that's actually true. Sorry, so far. So yeah, the whole idea of there being illness that I can't control, that now I have to go to a doctor and try to see what they can do about it. Yeah. And the other part of that is that, and again, not trying to burst any bubbles here, but we don't have 100% ability to control, cure, stop any of that happening. So that's a frightening reality of just being alive on the planet as a human being.
But there's a mindset. That if you can get across to a patient, not similar to why do you change your oil? I changed my oil so my car. I'm not changing my oil because there's a noise.
Right.
I'm not changing it because I'm having a trouble driving.
Yeah.
I'm changing it because it's proactive and it will make my car run better and longer. Which is why many times you're going to a doctor. That's why you have a annual checkup, not to find something wrong, but to continue that things are going right.
Right, and we call that healthcare maintenance, healthcare screening, very close to my heart as a family physician and a general practitioner. I want to keep people healthy. I would prefer not to treat you for illness. I'd prefer to prevent it.
Right.
And I would also like to find an illness you might have that might do you some damage down the road that you might not know by symptoms. Let's say, I don't know, hypertension. So no symptoms of hypertension, but you might have it. It can do you damage. It can increase the risk of heart attacks and strokes down the line. So let's find out you have that so that we can treat it to prevent you from having. So that's all healthcare maintenance, healthcare screening, prevention. Immunizations play into that immensely. We have this wonderful technology that has very good evidence that it helps prevent disease. it is not risk-free. Immunizations aren't risk-free. We should never say that, oh, yeah, it's just perfectly fine. But there's a risk-benefit to everything we do, including any decision in medicine. There's always a risk-benefit. So let's talk about the risk-benefit. We would go for high-benefit, low-risk. That would be ideal. Immunizations are like the poster child for high-benefit, low-risk. They're not risk-free, and everybody has to make their decisions about a risk-benefit equation. Part of the problems with immunizations is that we've been so successful. Like, when's the last time you saw somebody who had polio or post-polio syndrome?
Right.
We haven't seen it. So you're like, well, do we need a polio vaccine? Not an unreasonable discussion. I remember I was taking out a skin lesion, doing a biopsy on a patient of mine. He was about 85 or something like that, and the subject of immunizations came up, and he says, I just don't get this immunization reticency. When the polio vaccine came out, we lined up. Because we saw all these kids with polio, and it was heartbreaking. So we all lined up. It's like, what do you mean I'm not going to get a vaccine? I need to protect the kids. I'm totally getting the vaccine.
Right.
But there was this idea that it's all right in front of us, and we want to do something to protect our community, to protect each other, to protect myself, all of the above. And now you don't see it, so we're kind of, in some ways, a victim of the immense success of these immunization programs because we don't see it as much.
The phrase, there are risks in everything, no matter how well you say it, still has the ring of a disclaimer. And when you say that to someone and then they say to you, what would you do? Mm-hmm. What is your response?
So what I'm gonna, I will
Thank
tell.
God I'm not in your shoes.
Well, I will tell them about So people before I answer that question directly. So people make decisions in various different ways.
Yeah.
So they're going to say, well, I'm going to think about that myself, and what do I think I might do study. I might ask somebody that I trust. So what they're saying basically is they're saying, I kind of trust you. I think you have a pretty good head on your shoulders, and I'm asking your opinion about what you do, and they're going to use that. So who am I to not give them that? I'm not going to say you should do it because I say you should.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, well, the science, and by the way, I would absolutely get all the immunizations I could possibly get in order because I don't want to get sick. I'd prefer to prevent illness.
From a malpractice standpoint, you're allowed to say, you know what, I'd do it.
If they ask.
I understand if they ask. Brandon, have you had medical anxiety, or are you comfortable with doctors?
I mean, needles, but it's the exception of needles. Even Dr. John's face winced a little bit.
Well, I have to say, too, like the blood panel, like I just did my annual, so I went and did the whole blood panel, and I went to the lab, and this woman, I didn't even, I let her shop. I took off my sweatshirt and I showed her everything I had. Right. I said, this is all I got for you. You tell me what you want. She said, I want that one. I said, it's all yours, baby. Okay. And I didn't feel it going. I maybe felt a little prick. That was it. She was so quick and so good. The phlebotomists are absolutely incredible. When they're good, they're really good. But I don't like needles either. No. I mean, I don't,
Well, so one of the most difficult things I did early on in my medical training was draw blood. Because the first time, so just imagine, I am getting a blood draw, but imagine you're the one with the needle.
Never would want, oh my God.
You have to stick the needle into their body and then suck their blood out. So there's like so many social things that are like, you shouldn't cause problems, you shouldn't inflict harm on other people.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, no, but you need to do this. Like, I was terrified. It's like, what if I miss? What if they bleed? What if they...
Oh, it's invasive.
When the guy with the needle looks the other way as well, know you're in trouble.
And that's why, so I read about this because we're doing lawful searches and seizures right now in my crim class. And when let's say if you get pulled over and the officer suspects drunk driving, the breathalyzer, having a driver's license means that you've agreed to a breathalyzer because you have to agree to a breathalyzer. Right. However, the blood test is not something that they need a warrant for because it's invasive. It's something actually pulling DNA out of your body. I mean, they could use it for other purposes, so it's like this extra step. Whereas the breathalyzer is just taking the breath. It's a lot less invasive, and it's like a totally different ballgame.
Before we wrap it up, let's do a quick liner notes.
Oh, yeah.
Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Today, a transformative band in the history of rock and roll. Blood, Sweat, and Tears was, for me, a revelation. A little more than a decade after the emergence of Chuck Berry and Elvis, BS&T literally exploded on the scene. I had the good fortune of them opening for me at the short-lived Palo Alto Jazz Festival in 1988. After a brief hiatus, David Clayton Thomas was back as the lead singer, and believe me, they rocked it, well, as much as you could rock Palo Alto in the late 80s. Also on the bill, my late friend Kenny Rankin, who would open later the first Jazz on the Plaza 15 years later. Joe Williams and Sarah Vaughan. Not a bad lineup, if I do say so myself. But here's a bit of musical trivia. BS&T were the first Western rock group to play behind the Iron Curtain. Yep, 1970 in Romania. In fact, an interesting documentary about their trip is streaming now on Paramount. You should check it out. The tune today was written by David Clayton Thomas himself. In 1968, the recording of Spinning Wheel was an amazing hit. Over the years, literally dozens of great jazz players have been part of the band, from Randy Brecker and Wayne Shorter to Lou Marini, Blue Lou and the Blues Brothers, and they're still touring. Enjoy it.
What goes up must come down. Spinning wheel, got to go round. Talking about your troubles, it's a crying sin. Put your painted pony, let the spinning wheel spin. You got no money and you got no home. Spinning wheel, spinning all alone. I hear you talking about your troubles and you never learn. Catch a painted pony, let the spinning wheel turn. Did you find a directing sign on the straight and narrow highway? And would you mind a reflecting sign? Just let it shine within your mind and show you the colors that are real. Hey, can you see 'em, baby? Someone is waiting just for you. Spinning wheel, spinning true. Drop all your troubles by the riverside. Catch a painted pony on the spinning wheel. Someone's waiting just for you. Spinning wheel, spinning true. Drop all your troubles by the riverside. Catch a painted pony, let the spinning wheel fly.
I can't get hard, not even with a blue.
Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Great group.
That's one of my favorites.
Came after Chicago with those big jazz horns in the arrangement. It's marvelous. Wrapping up our conversation with John Clark, we will have plenty more in the months and years to come. Providing I stay alive, and he's the doctor.
I think we're doing good on that.
We're doing good. Oh yeah,
At least I'm doing
I'm
good
sure you've got me on.
We
your,
know you're trying. We know how hard
I'm sure
you're
you've
working.
got me on your resume.
Oh yeah,
I kept this guy along for this long.
Good testimonial.
Look at this guy.
You know,
he's walking.
That would be a funny testimonial. I don't know if people love funny testimonials, but that is a good,
Well,
for the website.
I was telling John when the Doctor Who when I was
Oh.
had my colostomy. Not my colostomy, my
Colonoscopy.
There you go.
Meeting, and he said, "Do you drink?" I said, "I drink a lot of tequila." And he goes, "Okay." And he wrote it down. He says, "Do you smoke?" I said, "Yeah, I have maybe a cigar a day." And he wrote that down. He finally goes, "Does Dr. John has warned you about this?" I said, "No, he encourages it." He had a great look on his face. You haven't heard from him, I take it.
No, I have not heard from him. That may not be an exactly accurate representation of what I said. I just might say,
but I'm on his resume.
Yeah, there you go. So,
That's so funny.
Yeah, no worries.
Anyway, so we got more like 1 minute right now. Most important thing is normally hypertension and diet things that people need to think about.
As far as their health,
yeah,
I think I get back to the basics on this. Be good to yourself.
Yeah.
So eat good, healthy food. Stay active. I can't emphasize how much your own choices affect your health. Like, I'm not in charge of your health. Michael, you're in charge of your health.
You're
I'm your
in
consultant.
charge of monitoring it, perhaps.
Right? And it's a teamwork sort of thing. But the vast majority of substantive health decisions don't happen in a doctor's office. They happen with each of us in our lives, every single choice we make through the day. So be good to yourself. Eat well, eat healthy. This is where like RFK and I and most of the medical community are simpatico. Try to get good, healthy, fresh food like this carrot cake's beautiful, non-processed. That's super healthy. Stay active and stay exercise and stay engaged in your health. Don't go see your doctor. They're there to try to help you work as a team to try to find illnesses or screen for illnesses, to prevent illnesses. Much better to be preventing things than to doing things, and that's a teamwork between you and your doctor.
And above all, if you need to choose between a seminar in Fiji or Minneapolis,
during the winter,
take your swimming suit.
It's good to know.
Going with
John Clark, great to see you, my
So
friend.
good to be
John.
here.
And
Thank you for inviting me.
We got an A train around?
We do. Do
And
you
I
want
bet we
to
get-
should we bring her in?
I think we should bring the A train in. The A train is on its way in. We are on our way out. As always, this show has been for Mark, for Georgianne, and for you. Until next Saturday. Next Saturday, by the way, CineQuest.
Oh, that's
It's gonna be, and then
right.
the week after that, we've got the veterans in, so we've got a couple of good weeks coming up. Until then, you take care of yourself. I'm Jacoby. I'll see you soon.
Hurry, 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 take the A-train to get to Sugar Hill way up in Harlem. If you should take the A-train, you get to where you're going in a hurry. Hurry, 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 now it's coming. Can't you hear the rails are humming? If you should miss the A train,